Rafe, very good morning to you. Good to see you. Quite a lot of action yesterday in Prime Minister's Questions. It was quite lively for a change. Let's have a look at some of the clips from it. Here's the first one. This is, of course, Kemi Badenoch finally actually cutting through. We've been waiting for a long time for her to actually do something quite positive. Here she is.
I asked him, Mr. Speaker, about the two-child benefit cap. He's talking about the Kremlin. He's saying everything he can to distract from the mess he is making of our economy. The OECD has downgraded growth for the next 2 years. He can't rule out tax rises. The police chiefs are saying they don't have the money they need to keep the public safe. Just as he's releasing more criminals onto the streets. His cabinet are squabbling with each other. They've said that they've lost control of the borders, but he still managed, Mr. Speaker, to find £30 billion to give away the Chagos Islands. This is total and utter chaos. 2 weeks ago, he was crowing about his historic trade deal and how he got 0% tariffs on steel. Now the steel industry will face 25% tariffs unless he does exactly what President Trump tells him to. It is chaos, chaos, chaos. And isn't the root of the chaos, Mr. Speaker, that it is about this Prime Minister, his decisions and his judgment?
The only advice, Mr. Speaker, she gets up on a Wednesday morning, scrolls through social media, never does anything. We're the only country in the world that isn't paying the 50% tax on steel. And we're working in the US, and that will be coming down. We are working on it to bring it down to zero. That is going to happen.
Order. Please. Let's listen to the answer, even if you don't believe you're getting one. It is how the Prime Minister wishes to.
What did she opposes the US deal, she opposes the India deal, she opposes what we're doing with the EU, and she opposes Diego Garcia. That's a vital intelligence and strategic capability. Absolutely clear that legal uncertainty would compromise that capability in a very short time. No responsible Prime Minister would ever let that happen. We have secured the long-term basis for the base. That has been welcomed by, Mr. Speaker, welcomed by the US, NATO, Australia, New Zealand, India. They're our allies. It's been opposed by our adversaries, Russia, China and Iran. And into that column we have reform, presumably following Putin, and the Tories following reform.
This is earlier than normal. We do the live the day for Keir Starmer. Normally it takes till about 8 o'clock for him to put out a tweet. That's his first live of the day because he claims that China is against the Chagos deal, when of course they just came out last week and said they were very much in favour of it.
Well, it's a blatant lie, of course, because Mauritius, who he's handed over our sovereign territory to, Mauritius is in the pocket of China. China wants to have extreme influence there. China may also pressure Mauritius, because Mauritius has signed up to the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons Treaty, which means they actually could easily pull the Diego Garcia deal and not allow us to have our missiles there if they want to, if China forces them to. That's one of many lies there. I mean, the idea that you know, India is a great deal, that his deal with the EU is a great deal, deal with America, these are terrible deals.
Well, apart from anything else, it was revealed pretty much yesterday over the steel tariffs that actually there is no deal with America. They haven't signed anything. They've only had, I mean, in their own words, it's an ambition rather than an actual promise of something that's going to happen.
And worse still, Trump has now come out and said you've got a deadline of 5 weeks. You know, you need to get to the table. So once again, it looks as if he's being bullied by another world leader, and he's so desperate to be seen after Rachel Reeves' disastrous, budget. Whatever deal he can get, however bad it is for Britain, so long as he can hold up a piece of paper and say I've done more than the Tories. I mean, he's selling us out geographically and financially.
I mean, that is the problem. And very interesting intervention from Lindsay Hoyle there, who's been under a sort of a cloud of his own, thanks to his island hopping in the Caribbean this week. £5,500 of public money spent on taking private planes between Montserrat and Antigua. Very nice if you can if you can do that sort of thing. But he actually said, you know, we want to hear the answer. We want to hear the Prime Minister, even if he's not actually answering the question. Because he hasn't, I mean, yesterday was a great example. He didn't answer any question at all that he was asked. And surely at some point somebody has to say, Prime Minister's question surely has to be about the Prime Minister answering the question that he's asked and not just evading it.
The British people deserve far better than this. We're in a real crisis. We need serious answers to serious questions. And what did he do during PMQs? She, Kemi Badenoch, one of her, every 6 weeks we get a good performance out of her. This was one of those times. She was on fire, asking real questions about lifting the cap on two children families. He came back saying, "Oh, you're a friend of Russia," a completely innocuous reference actually to something that the Russians said about her, accusing Ukraine of fighting a proxy war on behalf of the West. Had nothing to do with a serious question which the British people want to ask. How are you going to fund any potential lift on the two-child cap?
But this is the problem, isn't it, for somebody like Keir Starmer? He immediately resorts to kind of, insults and ridiculous sort of playground conversations when he gets a bit rattled. And that's when he starts lying even more, and that's when he starts, losing the plot, because he doesn't seem to be able to handle somebody having a go at him. And when he sat there, as we were watching Kemi Badenoch there having a go at him, skewering him rather well, he looked so uncomfortable, and he didn't look like a man that knew what to say in return.
Well, there's nothing he can say. I mean, the Labour Party is in free fall. This is a man who's supposed to be an experienced barrister, right? An experienced member of a prosecutor, and you can just see him withering under her fire there. I don't know how good he was in the actual intensity of a courtroom.
I think we've discovered over time, and I discovered this a few weeks ago, that in fact he didn't really do that much actual, advocacy in a court of law. What he was doing when he was head of the CPS was actually instructing other lawyers to go off and do battle on his behalf. He didn't actually do an awful lot of it himself.
Which explains why he's so mediocre and can't think on his feet, as we've seen time and again.
Exactly right. Let's have a look at a couple of other clips. One, as you mentioned, on the two-child benefit cap. Check this out.
The government keep the two-child benefit cap.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm absolutely determined that we will drive down child poverty. That's one of the proudest things of the last Labour government. That's why we've got a task force. That's why we've got a strategy, and we'll set out that strategy in due course. But we drive child poverty down. Under them, poverty always goes up.
I didn't ask him about a task force. I asked him if he will keep the two-child benefit cap, and he doesn't know. It's just chaos and uncertainty. He has no details. He is briefing something and causing a lot of confusion to the people out there. But on that two-child benefit cap, Mr. Speaker, I'll tell him this. I believe in family, but I also believe in fairness. Yes. On this side of the House, we believe that people on benefits should have to make the same choices on having children as everyone else. Yes. What does the Prime Minister believe?
Yes. Prime Minister. Speaker, I believe profoundly in driving down poverty and child poverty. That's why we'll put a strategy in place.
I believe in poverty. I believe in driving down poverty. I believe in driving down child poverty. I mean, he's like an automaton that just spouts, whatever, you press a button and you get some kind of, instant policy, which doesn't mean anything. It's become a government of slogans, hasn't it? And actually not doing anything behind the slogan.
Well, it's also a party and a government that's completely discombobulated by Reform. Reform have come out with this policy that they want to lift the cap on two-child families.
Yeah.
And I think the left wing of the Labour Party, of course, who are extremely angry because for all sorts of other cuts and things, they're calling for this as well. I think he knows it will play very badly. The Tories think the Reform Party have done a misstep here because actually, yes, the Reform Party needs to lean left on economics to get more people voting for it from the Labour wings. But what the policy people don't like is lifting the two cap. Because what a lot of them think is it's going to people who are on the benefit system, who are taking advantage.
Although Nigel Farage, to be fair to him, was quite clear that that's not what he was intending to do, that he was talking about having an incentive for more people to have more children, but who were responsible parents, not those who would be likely to kind of be another drain on the state. So what he wanted to do was to try and encourage more people to have more kids, basically. I mean, and I think he was quite specific about saying it won't go to people who are on universal credit.
Yeah, but I think the message the public can take from that is essentially that it's going to go to end up. And that's the problem there.
That is the problem.
And it has to be said, any country in the world that has adopted pro-natalist policies, Hungary has done more for pro-natalism than anywhere else, encouraging more births. It's had almost minimal effect. These policies, unfortunately, don't work.
Yeah, it is difficult to encourage people to have children when they don't really want to. I mean, that's the bottom line. And
when you've got a tiny apartment, tiny home, cost of living is so high. I mean, it's a drop in the ocean, unfortunately.
Yes, but what we do know is that the birth rate, of course, as it is falling in this country, is rising in other parts of the world. I think in places like Nigeria, the birth rate is at something like 5.0 for every couple who are married, whereas here it's below it's 2.0.
It's below replacement here. And I spoke to one of the world's top demographers last year, and he explained to me that actually immigrant communities, when they arrive in the country, all of them, with one exception, go down to the British population birth rate within 1 or 2 generations, except for Muslims are the only population that are increasing in size. And he said one of the other things, of course, is that with welfare programs, if you look at Scandinavia, the more multicultural a society becomes, the less willing people are to pay things like these welfare benefits, because it's human nature. People only want to pay benefits to people like themselves. So as Denmark and Sweden have had increased immigration, there's less support for a welfare system. And I think that may be one of the reasons why this policy of reforms may prove to be unpopular.
Because that is the problem here as well, isn't it? Because people come to this country from all sorts of other countries, partly because they know that they can get benefits, which in their own country they wouldn't get.
Exactly.
And that's why we're such a draw. Let's have a look at what the winter fuel payments exchange was all about, because that's another U-turn by Keir Starmer. But again, very unclear as to how they're going to pay for it and exactly who is going to be affected by it.
Mr. Speaker, 3 weeks ago, the winter fuel policy was set in stone. 2 weeks ago, the Prime Minister U-turned. Today, the Chancellor is rushing her plans because she just realised when winter is. So on behalf of the pensioners who want to know, can the Prime Minister be clear with us here and now? How many of the 10 million people who lost their winter fuel payments will get it back?
Prime Minister.
Well, I'm glad to see she's catching up with what happened 2 weeks ago. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, at the budget, we took the right decision to stabilise the economy because of the £22 billion black hole that they left. And the signs, we took the right decisions. The growth figures are up, the interest rates have been cut, and we got 3 trade deals. So we will look again, as I said 2 weeks ago, at the eligibility for winter fuel, and of course we'll set out how we pay for it. But because we've stabilised the economy, Mr. Speaker, we on this side are committed to the triple lock, and that increased pensions by over £400 this April. On their side, they say the triple lock is unsustainable, and I think her position is she wants to means test it.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister clearly has selective amnesia. I asked him 3 questions about the winter fuel payment 2 weeks ago, and he was floundering. The fact is, he hasn't answered the question I asked him. He hasn't answered the question I asked him. He can't tell us who will get the payments. All we see is U-turn after U-turn. His head must be spinning.
And once again, of course, more lies from Keir Starmer, talking about the 3 trade deals he's done, at least 2 of which are not trade deals, talking about, she's suddenly remembered something that happened 2 weeks ago. He still hasn't explained what the question asked him to explain, which is who's going to benefit from the U-turn and why he's decided to do it. And he's also hiding behind the fact that he can now afford to do it because the economy is in better shape than it was last year, which it isn't.
No, it's not. Yeah,
I mean, take your pick of the lies out of that one.
It's gone up by 1 millimetre. The economy, it's hardly enough. Yeah, I mean, you could do a top 10 lies from just one PMQs. It seems with Keir Starmer this time around, and there you had, laughing behind him, David Lammy seems to think he's got some stand-up comic in front of him.
Well, it's nice to see him in the country for a change. I mean, he's normally sort of shooting off in a private jet somewhere, isn't he?
But of course, the whole issue of the pension, OAP U-turn just shows how actually inept this government is. How completely obvious it was going to be that this was going to backfire hugely. It's obviously a vote loser. We know, of course, pensioners vote for a far higher proportion than any other section of the population. And quite frankly, to go through all of that damage to yourself for £1.5 billion, I mean, for heaven's sake, there are 1 million foreign nationals claiming £7.5 billion on universal credit every year.
Exactly.
We've got 15 billion in a decade for migrant hotels. There are clear areas where you can save the amount of 1.5 billion without actually, putting it onto the backs of our poor.
Well, she announced yesterday, we'll talk about this after the break, but she announced yesterday £15 billion to be spent on, Andy Burnham's pet project in Manchester, the first electric carbon neutral, transport link between one part of the city and another. Nobody cares at this point whether it's carbon-free or electric, but £15 billion is an awful lot of money. We are, of course, Morning Glory. It's 20 minutes past 6. Rafe Heydel-Mankoo is here. Coming up, we're going to hear from Sarah Pochin, the new Reform MP, who asked a very, very difficult question that apparently everybody in the House of Commons thought was absolutely absolutely shocking. We'll get to that. Plus Rachel Reeves and what she said yesterday. And if you ever wanted to see a group of people standing behind a minister looking more and more uncomfortable, this is your chance. This is Talk. Good morning and welcome back to Morning Glory, 6:24. I'm Mike Graham and we are here, of course, for your delectation all the way through till 10 o'clock for glorious hours of Morning Glory every single weekday morning from 6 until 10. Good morning, Mike, says Jim. In the Netherlands, when I saw that clip of Rachel Reeves yesterday, I couldn't help but think that the workers standing behind her looked like they had turned up at the wake of a past colleague. On reflection, it may be the case, listening to the last rites of our beloved country. Well, I don't understand... Rafe, why they do this now. Every time we see Keir Starmer out and about in a factory, or we see Rachel Reeves out and about, she was in apparently a bus factory yesterday up in Rochdale, they put this sort of hapless crowd of people behind them, standing there, clearly looking as if they've been taken hostage and made to kind of look as if they're enthusiastic, and they never look enthusiastic.
No, and of course, they don't do any polling beforehand. How many of the employees are actually on Labour's side? So you're a hostage to fortune yourself.
Yeah,
you don't know what's going to go on behind you. I wonder whether the bosses on the other side just basically glaring at everyone to stay in line. But it's so hard to actually fake enthusiasm. I'm sure most of these people don't really care about the Labour Party's policies. No. One iota.
Well, it's hardly inspiring, is it? There's actually a great clip, which I'm about to show you, of a guy who's standing to Rachel Reeves' right. And if you pay close attention to his sort of body language, you can see that he would rather wish to be almost anywhere else other than listening to her.
And put simply, our plan, the central barrier to economic growth has been underinvestment. First, stability. So, reforming our pension system to cover the first 10 years of the previous Conservative government, no matter where they grow up. And because I know, and thousands of pounds extra.
I mean, you can just see there's a bit of a jumping going on there. We'll try and sort that out. But you can see the guy is completely and utterly nonplussed about being there. He's shifting from one foot to another. He's raising his eyebrows at one point. He's scratching his face. I mean, you can tell that he's literally been sort of press-ganged into standing there.
Well, that could be any one of us standing behind her, I must say, although it looks also... He may have had a rough night the night before as well. But every time that I first heard of Rachel Reeves, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, and I remember thinking, that's the sort of voice you want to have if you're an insomniac. You know? Play that every evening and you'll go off to sleep.
I mean, if it wasn't for Keir Starmer, you'd be calling her the robot of the government.
Exactly,
but she actually... he actually makes her look almost human. Here she is announcing the U-turn on winter fuel.
I had to make decisions last year to restore sound public finances, and that involved a number of difficult decisions around welfare, taxation, and also public spending, including the decision to means test winter fuel payments, so only the poorest pensioners, those on pension credit, got it. But we have now put our public finances on a firmer footing. The economy is in a better shape, but we have also listened to the concerns that people had about the level of the means test. And so we will be making changes to that. They will be in place so that pensioners are paid this coming winter, and we'll announce the detail of that and the level of that as soon as we possibly can. But people should be in no doubt that the means test will increase and people will get, more people will get winter fuel payment this winter.
I mean, she says she's on firmer footing, but she's treading water here, you know?
We will be doing it at some point soon. They'll definitely get it. According to The Guardian, which is supposed to be their cheerleader, chaos fears over return of winter fuel payments. Bereaved families of tens of thousands of dead pensioners could be pursued by tax officials to recoup winter fuel payments under a new system being explored by the Treasury. So apparently not only are they not actually sure how they're going to do this new means test, but they may be actually trying to recoup money from people who have passed on.
Yeah, absolutely.
What the hell is going on with that?
And, well, I mean, they're just so desperate now to try to find some way to make this work. Taxing the dead.
I mean, that's a new low, isn't it?
Well, we're only in the first year. Let's see what else is to come in the next couple of years.
First they kill them, and then they tax them after they die.
But even if they tax the dead, it's still not going to raise enough money to actually pay for all of this. And that's the thing. What they really... I mean, she loves to attack Liz Truss. She has made an unfunded pledge here. Yeah. That's exactly what she's done.
Yes. Exactly right. Now let's get to the meat of the matter, because this was the question, I suppose, that shocked the nation. And why it shocked the nation, I don't know, because it's a perfectly reasonable question. But Sarah Pochin, a very estimable character who's now become the 5th Reform MP, having won the Runcorn by-election from Mike Amesbury, the guy who thought it was a great idea to go around punching his constituents. Let's have a look at what she said to Keir Starmer yesterday.
Given the Prime Minister's desire to strengthen strategic alignment with our European neighbours, will he, in the interests of public safety, follow the lead of France, Denmark, Belgium and others and ban the burqa?
Yeah. Prime Minister.
Can I welcome her to her place? But I'm not going to follow her down that line. But now she is here and safely in her place, perhaps she could tell her new party leader that his latest plan to bet £80 billion of unfunded tax cuts, with no idea how he's going to pay for it, is Liz Truss all over again. Although, considering I think she was a Conservative member when Liz Truss was leader, she probably won't.
Once again, Keir Starmer refusing to answer the question quite pointedly, saying, I'm not going to follow her lead on that. But could you believe the reaction of the House of Commons, the entire chamber? It was all like, oh, goodness me, why would somebody ask that terrible question? How is it a terrible question?
Yeah, and the implication is that somehow France and Belgium and Denmark are beyond the pale. These are advanced Western European
all countries
democrats.
that Keir Starmer wants to cosy up to, by the way, in his new EU trade deal. Oh, but he apparently doesn't want to talk about that bit.
Well, look, as I've said on here many times, you know, the average British voter is to the right of the average Tory MP on immigration, but also on these sorts of cultural issues.
Right.
Even the Tory MPs are to the left of where the British voter is, where Talk's viewers and listeners are as well. These are important questions to be had, and yes, we're at the point now where our culture is under threat from many, many different ways, and one of those, of course, is the lack of social cohesion in this country, and whether or not we should allow the burqa to be worn must be one of those questions which we should be unafraid, whatever your view is, we should be unafraid of openly discussing whether you're actually encouraging a segregated community to become essentially its own increasingly separated community.
Also, why the sort of sudden intake of breath? You know, I'm sick to death of these people who think that we can't discuss things. You know, we're all grown-ups, we're all grown up enough to be able to say, you know, either I think the burqa is a ludicrous and crazy and ridiculous look for anybody to wear. I see them, I was in Oxford Street yesterday, you see more people walking around wearing burqas in Oxford Street than you do in Dubai. You know, and that's a fact, because there are people in parts of the Arab world who understand that actually it's a subjugation and it's not something that women should be forced to do.
And
so
once again, the feminists...
Why can we not talk about it?
And once again, the feminists are silent about this. You know?
Very silent.
It's women's free choice. When you're brought up in a culture of misogyny, you do end up actually adopting its things without even realising why you're doing it. And it is clearly an oppressive garment to be worn. But this is precisely why, this question is precisely why reform is ahead in the polls, ahead of the Tories, ahead of Labour, because the British public think this is a common sense question, and the reaction of our elites in Parliament just goes to show how disconnected they are.
Exactly.
And if Labour really wants to make inroads and take away some of that reform vote, it's going about it in entirely the wrong way.
Yeah, because they know that they can't go about it the right way, because they are intrinsically and sort of, you know, ridiculously wedded to this left-wing ideology which says that all foreign cultures are good, all immigration is good, all people who come from another country, particularly if they happen to have brown skin, must be good people. I mean, that's what they genuinely believe, and that's why we are where we are.
Oh, and also equally important, of course, is the fact that Labour is desperately afraid of the rise of the Muslim vote. Of course, we now have 4 Muslim vote MPs, and it's precisely these sorts of issues, I think, that they're fearful that it will lead to a collapse of their vote, which they're already hanging on by a thread in so many of the north of England constituencies, and it's issues like the burqa that would mobilise the Muslim vote to actually stop voting for the Labour Party, and there'll be decimation on not only on the council level but on a general election level. And that's one of the reasons we see, of course, the Labour Party so keen to actually create a new blasphemy law by the back door with an Islamophobia bill.
Because they only want to protect Islam. They don't want to protect Catholicism, they don't want to protect Christianity, they don't even want to protect Hinduism, they just want to protect Islam because they're frightened of it.
Yeah, well, as the chap who was
just... What sort of ridiculous notion is that?
As the chap who was just convicted for burning a Quran outside the Turkish embassy said, had I burnt the Bible outside Westminster Abbey, no one would have noticed.
Yes. My favourite sort of moment of all of that was on Kevin O'Sullivan's show when he had a guy write in, because the idea is apparently the Turkish dissident who wants to go on a British tour now, burning the Quran in all sorts of parts of north, south, east and west, and they were talking about whether he should join up with some kind of modern touring operation, and somebody actually sent in a note to Kevin saying, why doesn't he tour with Simon Le Bon, and they could call the tour. 6:48, I'm Mike Graham with you all the way through, of course, until 10 o'clock when Julie Hartley-Brewer will be along. Mike says this, morning Mike, people are sick of the appeasement of every other culture except our own. And Mark says, Mark from Somerset, question time for Prime Ministers is a waste of time. All Starmer does is dodge the questions, and it's all jokes and laughter with such serious matters in hand. So very childish. Well, indeed. Let's get a voice note from Paul.
Morning, Mike. Great show. Last August, my stepdaughter was killed in a car accident, and she'd been self-employed for a little while, not very long. After she passed away, we filled in all the appropriate forms, so all the government offices knew that she'd passed away. And last March just gone, we received a fine for her from HMRC for submitting a late tax claim because she was passed away. She hadn't sent in the tax returns, and they wanted to fine her. And it took me 6 weeks to make HMRC understand that she couldn't put in her tax returns because she wasn't here to do that. It caused quite a lot of distress, but eventually they did grasp the fact that she was no longer here. Thanks, Mike. Cheers.
Jesus Christ, that's awful, isn't it? How dreadful. HMRC, I mean, I don't think they've done very many favours for many people over time. The story this morning about them is that they've lost up to 100,000 taxpayers' records to organised criminals in a sort of cyber attack last year. Nobody's really quite sure exactly what information they've got or how much of this information could have been stopped from being given out. But what a terrible story. Imagine that. Paul lost his stepdaughter. She was killed in a car crash. I mean, surely they must be better at sort of joining up whatever government records there are.
I mean, there must be some system there that can deal with that stuff. I mean, it happens every day. People are dealing with these terrible situations, and I just can't believe that, in the 21st century you still have terrible situations like that arising.
I know, absolutely dreadful. Just one more story on Keir Starmer before we move on to Harry and Meghan. Apparently Madame Tussauds have said that they will not be currently making a waxwork of Keir Starmer. I thought when I read the story at first they were going to say, because obviously we can't improve on the waxwork that he is already, but in fact it turns out that because they're not sure about how relevant he's going to be in the future, i.e. they don't think he's going to be around very long.
Can you imagine being Keir Starmer reading that in the paper? He gets up in the morning, a little bit happy, this drags you right down to reality.
Those their words are, and of course Downing Street, with absolutely no sense of humour whatsoever, when asked about this, said, clearly this is a matter for Madame Tussauds. I mean, why wouldn't you make a joke of it?
I think Madame Tussauds should make one, so when he goes away, the waxwork can stand in at PMQs. It'll make just as much of an impact as he does.
And just put one of those sort of, robotic voices in it with a speaker. Let's talk about Harry and Meghan, because a big piece in The Sun this morning. There's a little bit on the front pages as well. And this is Sussexes cringe while they invade their own privacy again. And this is the Sussexes last night blasted for invading their own privacy after releasing a video of them twerking to induce labour. This is when, of course, Meghan was pregnant. So it's quite an old video, but she's posted the cringy hospital dance footage to celebrate daughter Lilibet's 4th birthday. Let's have a look at it.
Baby mama, this shot's been pregnant for way too long. I tell the DJ turn it off.
If she your baby mama, she gon' do that baby mama.
Work.
She gon' put it on you. She gon' do that baby mama. Drop it down, low. Drop it down, low. Do the baby mama when I step out on the top. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, hit the baby mama when I'm stepping through the door. Yeah, I'm pregnant, but I got a heel flow. Trying to make some money.
I mean, by all means, record something like that. Keep it to yourselves. Have a bit of a fun look at it once a year. Show it to your daughter when she's old enough to enjoy it. But why publish it? Why post it? Particularly when they're always banging on about their privacy.
It's not often I'm lost for words here, but, if you had told me a few years ago that the King's daughter-in-law would be heavily pregnant will be twerking in front of and showing it to the world. I said you've been into the source too early this morning.
It's
absolutely
very weird,
absolutely astonishing. You know, Charles de Gaulle said prestige cannot survive without mystery. Well, there's not much mystery left.
No.
After this, I have to say.
Well, remember
but the thing is, you know, this was released for Lilibet's, her daughter's 4th birthday, one of several videos. But, you know, they were always so keen to make their children's lives away from the public. They didn't want to have the media intruding, and here they are forcing us to basically endure their birth there. And what on earth Prince Harry was up to with his sort of dad dance there.
Yeah, dad dance, pretty awful, yeah, absolutely.
As South Park said, you know, our worldwide privacy tour continues.
Yes, yeah. We want our privacy. Remember to bring that back. Just to go back to the migrants for a change. Stop dinghies at sea, no mercy, it says in page 6 of the Sun. It's too dangerous to arrest people in the shallow waters of the English Channel, apparently, or the Sleeve, as they like to call it. Basically, the French police have said, contrary to what Keir Starmer promised, that they will not be wading into the shallow waters of Normandy. They will not be arresting the migrants before they try to get on boats to come here. So that whole, once again, another lie from Keir Starmer, saying that the French police are going to start doing something which they've never done.
Well, so this is the problem here. You know, Belgium does this. So Belgium basically goes into the water and stops the boats once they're in the water. And so you don't get dinghy crossings coming from Belgium. Right. France, for some reason, has a different interpretation of maritime law. And the problem with the French is it's the unions. The unions, again, as usual, say, no, it's a risk to life and safety. Yeah. Actually, the French government are trying to force the unions to cave in on this. Remember, there's a state visit coming up. Macron is coming over to the UK, and they want to actually have something here. So the French government seem to be actually taking this money now that we're paying, and finally they've agreed to have these new boats, to go 6 new patrol boats, 46 metres long, to actually go in up to 300 metres into the sea and actually stop the dinghies. This is actually good news. If the unions can be forced to actually do it. That's the problem here. Yeah. So actually this is slightly a good news story, something I've called on for a long time. Get these ships, they're 300 metres into the sea.
If they're going to do it.
But
there's no real incentive, apart from the fact that we're giving them bucket loads of money, like about £500 million. I mean, apart from the money, there's no incentive for the French to do it, because they don't really want to keep these guys. They're more than happy. Don't forget, there was a French politician, I think, this week, who said that as far as the migrants are concerned, Britain is El Dorado, you know, because they see, you know, the glimmering white cliffs of Dover, and they just see money, benefits, you know, we can stay there, we can live there, we can start a life there, we can get a house, we can bring our parents with us, we can bring our families with us, and I'm sure that's how they see us.
Well, it's the Heydel-Mankoo motto. The Heydel-Mankoo motto is make Britain less attractive than France. Yeah. That's the way. Forget smashing the gangs, empty the migrant hotels, put them into temporary refugee camps till they can be processed and deported, crack down on the underground economy. The French are very good at that. We get them over here, they disappear into curry houses, they become delivery drivers. Shops. Yeah, you know, you order something on Deliveroo, it says Mohammed is coming, there's a picture, somebody else entirely delivers the food, right? And the rogue landlords who have 10 people staying in one house, no background checks. These are the ways you stop people coming. You reduce the incentives, you cut the benefits. And if they're on a windswept refugee camp in the middle of the Orkneys or somewhere like that, it won't be long before the message gets out that Britain's not the ideal place to come. Stay in France, stay in Germany, stay anywhere.
Exactly right. Talking of staying where you are, the blockade of Gaza is about to be witness to Greta Thunberg. We did this at the beginning of the week. She's been on this boat which set sail, I think, from Sicily, and it's on its way to Gaza. Apparently she and a bunch of other virtue signalling lefties are going to free the siege of Gaza. They can, as somebody said, they're on a relatively small boat. They're probably bringing enough food for about 12 people, which they say they're going to distribute. The Israelis, on the other hand, are saying if they get any closer, we're going to board the vessel and repel it. And the last time this happened, I'm afraid, the IDF killed 9 people on another boat that came in because a sort of battle ensued between them and these idiots. And I mean, obviously, climate change is not good enough any longer for Greta Thunberg. She now needs to free Palestine.
Yeah, the level of narcissism here. This is all about. Look, I'm Joan of Arc for the modern world. Look at me saving everyone. You could just imagine the IDF approaching her, and she said, "How dare you? How dare you?" You know, it's one thing for Just Stop Oil and Greta Thunberg to go up against the Metropolitan Police with all their rainbow lanyards. It's another thing to go against the Israeli Defence Force.
It is.
I think they're going to be in for quite a rude awakening if they expect to be given a cup of tea and taken away with a blanket around them.
It's suddenly wake-up time, you know. and they were complaining that on their way sort of past the Hellenic Isles, they saw a drone above them, which they thought was going to be some kind of attack drone from the Israelis. It turned out to be the Greek Coast Guard that was just simply monitoring them. You know, they're so naive, these people. The idea that they think that this is a great idea, and the picture of the other people around her just shows you how ridiculous the whole idea is. It's just that, you know, spokesman for the group says that, you know, they want to raise international awareness of the humanitarian crisis in the Gaza Strip.
Because
nobody's mentioning it at all,
yeah,
are
exactly.
they? I mean, you don't get Sky every 5 minutes telling you that, you know, the Israelis have shot dead another, you know, 21 people, which it turns out they haven't. I've got this from somebody who has no sense of humour, calls himself Anon. Mike, you said you can only have a night's fun by drinking, and if not, you'd rather be dead. That's not what I said, actually. He says, I'm 25 years sober, and along with many other thousands of recovering alcoholics and addicts, I take offence, and I'll bet you won't read this out. Well, all you're doing, Anon, is showing how, having given up drinking, you have lost your sense of humour, and you're not very able to actually enjoy other people's opinions. So I'm very sorry, mate, for you. I'm glad you're 25 years sober, but, you know, you probably would have been happier if you hadn't been an alcoholic in the first place. I don't know. All I'm saying is, you know, if you don't think that I can have some fun by having a drink, and you don't want me to, and you take offence at it, I'm very sorry for you.
I'll drink to that.
Thank you very much indeed. Rafe Heydel-Mankoo, crack open the Jack Daniels. It's only 7 o'clock.